So I am going to share my screen with you, and then I will arrange this so that I can see the chat at the same time. All right. So welcome. This workshop is called How to Write More Without Big Blocks of Time. And I developed it because I often hear, particularly from academic women, if I just had big blocks of time, I'm sure I could get my writing done. Or a common strategy I remember using myself before I figured out the strategies I'm going to teach you inside of this workshop was the idea like, oh, I'll block off Friday, and my Friday will be my writing day. And I'll just like let the whole, all my writing stuff like accumulate onto Friday, and that's when I'll get it done. And inevitably, as a mom of three, on Friday, somebody would get sick or somebody would have a half day that I had forgotten about, or, like all of the things that could go wrong kind of did go wrong on those days when I was trying to get big blocks of time. So big blocks of time don't really ever come. So that's what I'll be teaching you a different method inside of this workshop. And the subtitle is 3 Secrets to Developing a Writing System That Builds Your Career. Because one of the things I really want to emphasize, and that what I'm trying to really make clear in my work is the relationship between writing and career. And that writing can be not only, it's not only, of course, like it's great to get published and that's what you really need to get promoted. But at the same time, writing can be, if you focus on writing, it can be the organizer of your career, and it can organize not only the projects that you take on, but also your actual schedule. So anyway, let's get started with how to write more without big blocks of time. And I think I'm going to get rid of these little sidebar thingies. And here we go. Okay. So when you search for stock photos of professor, this is what you get. Like, this is what the internet thinks a professor is in a stock photo kind of way, right? Older guy, white guy. I love the sweater. Who wears these sweaters? It's a grandpa sweater, but this is what we think chalk, right? This is the kind of image, the cultural image of what like an academic professor is. The default image is male, and white male specifically. So these are numbers for in the US context. Okay, so I'm going to use the word tenure in this presentation. In the UK and Europe, that's not what you call that's not one of the stages of promotion, but it maps roughly to the stage where you get permanency, or you get like you don't have to worry about renewing your job every year. And so I'll just say that. So even though this is kind of, the stats are US stats. So we have another white guy professor. 34% of assistant professors in the States are white males, but 54% of full professors are white males. So in the US context, the assistant professor is the entry level rank and the full professor is the highest rank. So there's a big drop off in terms of gender as you go through the academic ranks. Hold on a second. There we go. So now more than ever, women need to focus on crafting the careers that they really want in order to plug that leaky pipeline. But we need to do it our terms. And I like to say, we don't need to try to act like men in order to, go up the ranks inside of academia, but rather like we really want to do academia in a way that feels good to us and that really fills our cups. And that might look, and probably does look, very different from kind of the racist, ableist patriarchy that we live in inside of the world and in academia. So I want to introduce you to a couple of clients of mine. This is Kimberly. So after tenure, Kimberly felt like she was doing more of the less important things. So as she went up the ranks in her career, instead of feeling like, now I'm really like focusing on what I want to do, she actually felt like she was doing more of the less important things. And she even started to question whether she wanted to stay inside academia. But she's learning the techniques. She used the techniques we're going to learn today to feel like really important again and not just a cog in the wheel. And this is Nicole. Nicole was a early career faculty member teaching a 4-4 load, but she wasn't willing to give up her research, even though she really felt pulled in so many directions by teaching 4-4. I don't know if this sounds familiar to anyone, but this was very similar to my situation as well. When she learned these secrets we're going to talk about today during her first year in her professor work, she got very comfortable staying focused and saying no. And that actually impressed her colleagues. So sometimes we're scared to say no, or sometimes we're like, you know, maybe being focused is going to like backfire on us. But actually, as a junior faculty member, she stood up for herself, and her colleagues like really respected that. So you're here today to learn how to improve the one professional skill that is most likely to get you promoted, which is writing. And my goal today is to help you as an academic writer, you know, wherever you are in your career, to understand how to get more writing done with less stress. So more writing in a better situation, like in a less stressful situation. So I'm going to ask you some questions to interact with in the chat. So does this sound like you? You keep waiting for big blocks of writing time that never come, especially these days. So let me know in the chat if that resonates with you, if that sounds like a thought that you had or a tactic that you've tried to use that hasn't worked out. So Gemma says yes. Mary Beth says yes. Tori says yes. Lindsay too. Hi, Lindsay. Christy, great. Good. Not great, but that's what we're going to talk about. So that means you're in the right place. So does this sound like you? You had great advisors, or maybe you didn't have great advisors. I did, but you know, you had great advisors, but no one ever taught you how to write for academic publication while being an academic. So like, it's so different to you know, to write your dissertation than it is to write while you're,
Cathy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think I'm not able to let people in because I made you host. So if you can make me host again so that I can make you co-host, please.
Yep. I was letting people in, but I can't.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. All right. Thank you.
But yes.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem. So, right. So it's really different to like learn how to write. And then it's another thing to learn how to write while you're trying to balance teaching, research, and service, right? While you're trying to do all the things that are kind of pulling at you. So does this sound like you? You want to be able to write consistently without feeling guilty when you're not writing. So have you ever had that feeling like, oh, my paper isn't done, so I shouldn't really be enjoying myself, you know, or I shouldn't be able to relax because really I could be writing all the time, right? Like that's part of the problem with writing is like that, you know, for the actual words on the paper stage, like a lot of people would, you know, you could do it really as long as you had a paper and a pencil, right? When it gets down to it. But so that kind of prohibits us from relaxing. And there you can feel like, I hear women articulate a guilty feeling like, oh, I feel guilty when I'm, you know, I feel overwhelmed when I'm trying to write and guilty when I'm not writing. So yes. Click on live on YouTube. Oh, okay. Oh. From more. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not able to see it here.
Hold on a sec. Let me get. I have to get this more live on YouTube. Oh, I don't have permission to live stream.
Oh, okay. It's my. Can you let me take over? Can you?
Yeah, I'll take you.
Let me share my screen so that I can click on that, please.
Yeah, I'm making you the host again.
Thank you.
Okay. So hopefully that'll be good. All right. So is this the voice inside your head? My to-do list never ends. And so I never find time to write. I just like a to-do list, a mile long, and writing is one of the things, and it just keeps falling down. So let me know if that sounds familiar. I just have a couple more. Is this the voice inside your head? I know I need to publish so I can get that job or that promotion, but it just keeps being pushed to the bottom of the list. Yes. So Carla says everything else is urgent. And Rebecca says the email. Yes. And the email is the bane of our existence. So absolutely. So again, the reason I'm asking these questions is not to make you feel upset, but rather to see that you can see in the chat that you're not alone, right? That other people are feeling the same way. And so is this the voice inside your head? You can never relax because you could always be working. That's something that I think plagues us. We learn it as PhD students. You could always be working, like there's no boundary on the PhD students' working hours. I remember walking across the very frigid Michigan State University campus with my husband when we were graduate students, just so that he didn't have to go to the lab at midnight to feed the cells by himself. And so it was like there was literally no hour you weren't supposed to be working as a graduate student. Ruth says it sometimes even felt selfish to do research. Like no one wanted to admit they had taken some time for this. Yeah, 100%. Like, and it is crazy because it's like your whole job, like at least in the tenure system, so much of your actual promotion relies on publications, but writing time is not revered. So publications are revered, but whatever the process is that it takes you to get there is not revered. It's something you could do, wake up early and do it, or stay up late and do it, or put it on the weekends, right? Like, means it's at the periphery of your career, not during the meat of your days. And it doesn't make any sense. It's like an invalid test. It's like when you give a test to your students on stuff that you didn't cover in class, that's like not a valid test. It's that. That's how publications kind of can be like an invalid indication of our work as professors. Okay, so I know that you're not necessarily where you want to be, but we're going to try to help fix that today. So you're in the right place if you want to be able to write consistently without feeling guilty when you're not writing. If you know that writing and publishing is the key to the career and the life that you want. And also, if you want to feel like you're in charge of your writing instead of kind of being bowled over by your writing or overwhelmed by it. So here's what we're going to learn today. Number one, the definition of writing that will change everything. I have like a somewhat controversial definition of writing that I'm going to share with you. Number two, how to eliminate that guilt and overwhelm that we talked about around your writing practice. Number three, how to write more in less time. And I know that sounds like a wild claim, but I'm very serious about this. And I use this myself, and this is what we teach inside of my programs. Like, writing more, getting more done with fewer hours dedicated to it is what is the method that I'm going to teach you today. And then number four is the number one secret to writing sustainability, because we definitely want our writing to be sustainable. And number five, how your packed schedule can be an asset instead of a liability, because we're all working with packed schedules. All right, so I'm going to tell you just real briefly about myself, why I why I know about these things. So that's a picture of me on campus before COVID, because you can see this is my COVID hair. It just has been growing since then. I'm a tenured full professor at University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. I'm on my way out because I'm going to move into doing this writing coaching and career coaching that I do now full time. And I've been on academic leave for the past couple of years, but I went through all the ranks, got to the top of the scale, founded a research center, published a bunch of stuff. And before I embarked on, about in 2017, on working as a writing coach. And So I've been doing that for almost 5 years and have had hundreds of clients that I've worked through these things I'm going to teach you today with. Um, there's me with my kiddos. This was quite a while ago because the tiny one is 5 now. But basically, like when I first started on the tenure track, the big one you see here, who's now 14, she was born, and it was like anything that I wanted to do outside of daycare hours could not be done. Like this child, if she was in the room with me, it wasn't good enough just to be in the room with mommy. It was like I needed to be making eye contact with her. Like she needed all of my attention. And that really forced me to figure out how I was going to do my academic career inside of like normal working hours. Unfortunately, so many academic women are working their normal working hours and then bringing work home and working on the weekends, and it overflows right outside of the bounds of your workday. And she just made it so that that wasn't an option. So so the main strategy that I developed here is a strategy I used myself in order to go from feeling like really overwhelmed and not knowing, what to do to get my publications out, knowing I had to get that work done during the day. I couldn't, big blocks of time weren't working. Nothing seemed to be working. And when I finally figured it out, it really helped propel my writing and publishing. And so what I really want for you is to feel, instead of overwhelmed and guilty and kind of like harried and everything's urgent, I'm only getting to urgent things, not important things. What I want you to feel is confident, calm, and collected, like you are, like you're driving your career. And the word I've been using lately is designing your career, that you are in control of how your career looks, how your days look. And the key to this, in my opinion, is writing. So let's get started. So 3 secrets. Secret number 1. This is the definition of writing that I think is really, really important to understand. So my definition of writing is that writing is not just pen to paper or words on the page, right? Writing is reading, it's researching, it's brainstorming, it's organizing, it's editing. It all counts. And the reason that this is really important is that the number of words that you put on a page, if that's what we're going to define writing as, like words on the page, is not always the best measure of how far along a writing project is. And I'll give you a simple example. Science writers usually don't put words on the page first. Usually science writers build graphics and tables first. They present their data in a graphic form first. So the work of writing, the telling the story of the article that they're working on, is not about words on a page. If you just count, you're not going to count the words in a graph. It doesn't make any sense. So a lot of writing coaches will tell you, you need to write 500 words a day, no matter what, or you need to, or if you are counting these other pre-words on the page activities, then you're fooling yourself. It's like, no, that's not everybody's process, needs, like, not words on the page are not the best indicator all the time. And what this does for you too, just mindset wise, is if you are spending time reading it, as you should, right? Before you put words on the page, if you are outlining, sometimes outlining is the fastest way, the way to boost, that article. Going from no words on a page to an outline is like the most important, maybe the most important thing you can do, right? So all of those kind of activities are part of the writing process. They count. The other thing is that we often say to ourselves, like, oh, I'm not writing, I haven't done anything, like that kind of internal, that self-talk about I'm unproductive, I'm not doing anything, when what you're actually doing is reading and analyzing your data and making your charts and all of that thing. That is part of the process. So switching that mindset so that you understand that, okay, these things that I'm doing are necessary steps in the writing process. So, okay, maybe I don't get to words on the page until a little bit later, but I must do these other things in order to get words on the page, so they count. And again, it also kind of reveals how this writing advice that says write 500 words every day, no matter what, which is what some, writing coaches will teach you, it doesn't, that might work for a novel, but it doesn't necessarily work for academics. And I'll just say, if it works for you though, you should do it. Like I always say that about everything. So, okay. So that's secret number one, was the definition of writing, which that it includes all the steps. That's a really important mindset shift. Secret number two is the juiciest secret. So if you're going to take notes, this is the time to do it. I want to talk to you about soaring versus slogging. So I want you to imagine a time when you sat down to write something and it was like, I'm going to write 7 words and I delete 5 words. And then I wrote 5 words and I deleted 3 words. And it's like pulling teeth to get the thing out. So think about that kind of writing session. And then I want you to think about a time where you sat down to write and the words just kind of flowed from you. That's the difference between soaring and slogging. And I'll tell you like a more specific story. The illustrative example that I use for this is that when I remember like it was the end of the day. It was like probably like 3:30, 4 o'clock. I had to pick up my kids at 5 from daycare. And I was like, I just got to bang out this 250 word abstract to submit to this conference. And I just want to get this done today. I got like 45 minutes. I'm going to do it. And it was that like, I couldn't even get 50 words out. Like half an hour went by. It was like, why? It was about a project that I had already analyzed the data and written an article. It was just like a little submission of an abstract for a conference. And I was like, I can't get this out. So I was like, forget it, closed the laptop, got in the car, picked up the kids. The next day I sit down and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to write this thing. And it just like kind of almost popped out of my head, right? It just happened really without a lot of effort and kind of with some flow, right? So again, that's the difference between this idea, the terminology I use is soaring versus slogging. So soaring, the idea of soaring is like if you picture a bird in the sky held aloft by invisible energy, it feels effortless and easy. To use the bird metaphor, the bird is not drastically flapping wings. It's gliding, right? And you feel driven, but then to get back to the writing metaphor, the writing implications, you feel driven, you feel you're moving forward, you feel focused, and time kind of flies by. That's what I mean by a soaring kind of feeling. Versus slogging, which feels like walking through mud in heavy boots. It's slow and difficult. Everything feels heavy. You might use the language like that you feel stuck and time kind of drags on. So what we want to do is we want to create soaring feelings. I call them soaring sessions for writing, where you feel that, sustained by that invisible energy, where the words flow out, and what happens is then you can create this positive feedback loop from your writing because if every time you sit down to write, it feels like a slog, you're never going to want to sit down and write because it's like this negative spiral. And you want to craft deliberately a positive spiral. So you want to feel like, your writing process gives you positive feedback. Like you have good interactions with writing over and over again. So soaring sessions, if you can use them, if you can craft this, is what I'm going to explain to you how to do next. So if you can craft that soaring feeling and write during soaring sessions, that means that you don't have to write all the time. In fact, it gives you a certain time of day when you should write. That's the next thing I'm going to teach you. And you also don't need big blocks of time, because if you've ever had that soaring feeling, you'll know that that's not something that you're going to be able to sustain for 4 or 6 or 8 hours of writing. Like that's just not the way creation works. Like you're not going to be able to like keep that going very long. The slight exception might be on a writing retreat, but those are really rare, right? So you can do shorter but consistent writing sessions if you can create this soaring feeling. So if you suffer from guilt and overwhelm, which we already kind of talked about, this is a great way to combat that, because what we're going to do is we're going to identify the times that you should be writing, and equally importantly, the times you shouldn't be writing. And that's going to help you improve your relationship with your writing and write more in less time. So sometimes we think that working more hours is the answer, or like, oh, I want to write more, so I'll just work more. That's not the answer. Like, you will not get more creativity by working more hours. In fact, the one key, which I didn't mention here, to creativity is that you are resting sufficiently. So just piling on more and more hours, or tacking writing onto your evenings and weekends or early mornings, is not really a sustainable answer. But working at your best capacity for a reasonable amount of time consistently is the answer. So best capacity is what we're going to create with the soaring sessions. And then consistently doesn't mean every day, but it could mean just once or twice a week, and you will start to see results. So again, trying to write during like your worst times of day, your sloggy feeling times, is absolutely a waste of time. If you find yourself doing it, what I want you to do is stop, like stand up from the desk and walk away. Like, don't try to persevere through that slogging feeling. Instead, like, the best thing to do is like get up, take a walk, do something else, come back to it later, because all you're doing is teaching yourself that writing is hard. And it's not. I mean, sometimes it is, right? But it doesn't, that's not the feeling that you want to create in your writing sessions. So when you can create soaring sessions, it takes advantage of kind of your natural energies, your internal drive, the clarity you have at certain times of day. And you're really listening to kind of like your brain's and your body's energy patterns. So what you see on the screen here is just like a sample of how, of a little exercise that I'm going to invite you to do, which will help you to identify that soaring state, or that time of day where you are at, you're using your best energy and writing feels easy. But actually, I'll also say everything feels easy that time of day. So this isn't even just, based on writing, it's based on anything. Like for me, like my soaring state happens between about 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. And so if I want to do the dishes that they actually get done, like I probably need to do it during that time, or because I hate dishes, or if I want to do some kind of home project, like also, like I get, those are the good hours I have. After that, it's like harder for me to feel motivated, and things get kind of more sloggy. So this is a process of really reflecting on your own workflow and energy. And one of the things I teach inside my programs is that, like, I want you, instead of listening to what you think you should do based on what you think other people might be doing. So maybe, you think, well, I should wake up at 4:30 in the morning because I heard that people do that to get their writing done. But then you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you feel like death. Like that. Don't listen to those shoulds about what you think other people should be doing. Instead, what you want to do is intimately know yourself, and then use that knowledge to your best advantage in your writing and in your career in general. So what I want you to do is I want you to consider doing kind of a 3 to 5 day observation of your energy throughout the day. So you'll just see here, I've got 5 days, and I've got from every hour from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. listed out here. The reason for 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. is that that's like generally my waking hours. So you just want to use your waking hours, like whatever, from the first hour you get up to the hour you go to bed at night. And we're going to use a color-coded system. And, so markers, crayons, whatever you got. What you're going to do is every hour, you're going to mark on a piece of paper, which you can do if you're a bullet journal kind of person. You could do this inside a bullet journal. You could just do it straight up on a piece of paper. And And you're just going to kind of highlight the hour in one of 4 colors. Either green for like as you're doing whatever you're doing, not necessarily writing, but any work that you're doing or anything that you're doing. If you feel like you have energy, inspiration, and drive, you're going to mark that hour green. If you feel like, you're still pretty energized, but you need to take more breaks to sustain momentum in what you're doing, you're going to mark it blue. And if you feel that you're feel like easily distracted, bored, tired, procrastinating, you're going to mark it yellow. And if you feel complete exhaustion, like there's no way that you're getting anything done, you're going to mark it red. So you're going to do this for 3 to 5 days, and you're going to start to notice some patterns. And again, this, you want to do this observation during your work days, but it works on the weekends as well. It really is like about like finding your body and your brain's, best, most productive, most kind of lit up and sparkly time of day. Once you do this for 3 to 5 days, you should be able to start to see some patterns. And all the green and blue hours that you marked are your soar state. That's where you want to those are the times of day that you want to use for writing, because you're going to get that soaring session feeling. And the yellow and red are your slog state. And it's equally important to identify these because you want to not write during those times. So it's really important to know this about yourself. Now, some people are going to say, I did this for 3 to 5 days and I'm so exhausted that I don't have any green times, or it's completely inconsistent. All right. So so just to say a few things about that. One is if we're in like if you're on a semester system right now the semester is at its head. So you might just be exhausted and you might want to come back and try this, exercise at a different time of the semester. Also, if you're a mom of a little kid who's waking up in the middle of the night a lot, or you're breastfeeding, or you're sick yourself, or anything like that, that could mess with this. And so I have a couple of other tricks for getting that soaring feeling if this doesn't work for you. So I'll get to those in a second, but just know too that once you figure this out, this also could change as you change and as your life changes. So this is like something to be aware of and continually to reflect on. So to implement this information that you've now found out about yourself, what you want to do is you want to block or mark your soar state and your slog state on the calendar. And so you know when not to write and you know when to schedule writing sessions. So once you got your soar state on there, you can go, okay, well, I'm going to start small and I'm going to try to reserve 1 to 2 hours per day, 1 to 2 days per week for writing during those green times. If you can't get the green times because you're teaching during those times, do the blue times, but try to see, instead of, accepting the idea that writing is always going to fall to the bottom or writing has to fit in the edges. Instead, let's put writing directly inside your most productive, energized hours of the day. And if you do that, you don't need to write 6 hours a week. You could write 1 or 2 hours. You'll notice the low end of this is 1 hour once a week. And the high is 2 hours twice a week. And if you want to build beyond that, you absolutely can. But the starting place is like, let's just try this 1 hour once a week. Okay, cool. I'm able to be consistent with that 1 hour. Let's add another hour. And then and you just kind of build slow. But we're not building to writing 4 hours a day. Nobody can do that. Like that's not realistic. So really, you'll notice if you are writing during this soaring state, you don't need so many hours because you'll be faster and more focused for longer. which means that you don't need big blocks of time. So again, what you want to work towards is arranging your day around these soaring sessions instead of arranging your day around everything else. And you might be thinking, that sounds nice, except I don't have a lot of control over my teaching schedule, or I don't have a lot of control over XYZ, dropping off my kids, or I take care of this person and I have to do this at this time. Yes, this is a process. So it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but like right now it's April. Think about September, like think about next semester. If you're on a semester system, how could you rearrange your teaching schedule if you figured out that you're teaching during your soaring time? Like, can you now start to take action to rearrange fall so that you have access to those soaring session hours for writing? If not, okay, fine. How about for February? Could it be just once a week? Like, what could you do? Like, be creative, and also set the bar low to start. So again, the goal here is that you're developing a positive relationship with your writing so that when you sit down, it doesn't feel sloggy, because when you feel sloggy, it's like, nobody wants to write during like feeling like that. So what I'm teaching you here is part of a whole system for writing that has a lot of parts to it. You'll see the bottom of this pyramid, it says soaring sessions. And so I just taught you about the soaring state. Another way to get soaring sessions is to do co-writing. So you kind of feed off the energy of another person. And, if it's possible to do that in person, fantastic. You could meet up in a conference room or in a reserved room in the library and, write together. And it's not writing, it's writing side by side quietly is really the, like the definition there. But what we do in my programs, and then what you could also do, with friends online or colleagues online, is to get on Zoom, everybody mutes, and you put your goals in the chat and you write for an hour while, you just see the other person's head while they're writing. And then at the end of the hour, you kind of report on how you did. And that, having like a date with somebody else, gives you a couple of advantages. One is it helps you to keep that date with your writing. So you can put it in your calendar, and then, like, have you ever done this? You put the writing session in your calendar and then you just bowl right over it with email or something else. Well, it's easier to hold tight to that writing session if you're doing it with somebody, right? And then also you just get this energy from working at the same time as other people. And so we have a whole program that is just this. We have 6 co-writing sessions a day, and people get together and they do that little process that I just mentioned, and they write together. And we've had people really been able to make big progress on their writing because they're using that as like a date, and also they're getting that soaring feeling because they're there with other people. So again, this is this whole soaring system I teach inside my programs, but today is just the base of it is what I'm talking about today. So the last secret, before we get to questions, and I mentioned this before, but it's worth its own secret, which is that it's just as important to decide when you're not writing as to decide when you are writing. So the result of that is that you'll have a sustainable system. You're going to write more in less time, and it works with your packed schedule, because what you want to kind of get to the point of doing is your writing time and your research time and your important things time happens during your soaring time, your soaring state. And then everything else is happening in the other hours of the day, which is totally fine because you've used your best hours to do the most important thing in your career. So I give you permission to write during your soaring sessions and to let the pressure of writing all the time, just let that go. Because what I'm telling you is that it backfires. Like if you try to write all the time, or you think you need to be writing all the time, that's holding you back from writing more. So it's kind of like an opposite kind of thing. Like it's a mindset shift that you need to make in order to be able to actually write more. So just to recap, Today, we talked about the definition of writing that changes everything, which is that writing is not just words on the page, but writing is reading, and writing is organizing, and writing is outlining and making graphs, and everything. It all counts, which also means that it all can sit inside your soaring sessions if that's where it needs to be. And you can feel like you can shift that mindset to like, I never get my writing done, to I'm doing the things that are going to lead to the words on the page. We also talked about eliminating guilt and overwhelm around your writing practice, because when we say these are my writing hours and these hours over here are not, then it gives you permission to stop feeling that guilt, like, oh, I could be writing all the time. No, like, or if you ever, again, like I go back to that advice about like wake up before your kids. That never worked for me ever. My kids always, like, they could smell when I put a toe on the floor in the morning. They would be like, you know, like that. There was no pre-kid time for me. And actually, I have an early riser child who woke up every day at 4:30 in the morning for several years. And so there was no before that. There was no getting up before the kids, because there was no pre 4:30 in the morning. Sorry. But anyway, like, you should, if you've heard that advice and you're like, oh, why can't I just wake up earlier than the kids and do this? I'm weak, blah, 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 negative self-talk. No, like, that's not your time. If it's not your time. If it is your time, then you should do it. But if it's not your soaring state, then don't try to write during that time. It relieves you of that guilt. If you use soaring sessions, you will actually write more in less time, because when you're slogging, it takes way longer to get stuff done than when you're soaring. So that's how that write more in less time thing works. And the secret to writing sustainability is that as you are placing more and more sessions of writing inside your soaring state, or your co-writing, so you're feeling that soaring feeling, you're going to stop hating writing and you're going to start to feel excited about it. And that's kind of the feeling that we want to create. And it's a much more sustainable thing. And you don't need big blocks of time to do it. You just need your soar state. And again, that also means that your packed schedule is, you know, arranging your packed schedule around your writing can turn this process that of having or this fact that you have a packed schedule kind of into an asset instead of a liability. Like, when you get in tune with like when this soaring state is versus your slogging state, then you really can effectively craft your schedule in a way that puts writing right where it should be, which is during your most effective hours of the day. And all the other stuff will still get done because you don't need those hours for writing, because you're writing during your soaring sessions. So there's a lot more, you know, to creating a real sustainable writing practice. This is just a piece of what I teach inside of my signature program, which is called Navigate Your Writing Roadmap. Navigate's a 10-step system to take you from like clogged up pipeline to prolific publishing, but really importantly, without breaking down or burning out. So if the kind of things I said sound good to you and you would like to learn more, Navigate's where I teach my project management system for writing and also my pipeline management system. So all the parts of the soaring session, that pyramid that I showed you, I teach inside of there. And also project management and pipeline management. There's 10 modules. And we just happen to be opening for enrollment April 27th through May 3rd is the enrollment period. So basically, if you're interested in the course and to learning more about it, getting a first peek at the curriculum when we release it via email, then you can go ahead and click on that link. I'll put it in the chat. That will get you on the wait list for the course so that you'll get the first first crack at enrollment, and also just all the enrollment information. So if you want more information, that's where to go. And also we've created a special link for the academic women women. And that is the cathymazak.com/media. Right now, where that goes is this same page. But in the future, where it will go is whatever kind of interesting thing we are, talking about now. So this is where our focus is, because we're getting ready to, welcome a new cohort into this program in May. But we will have, additional resources available for you there. So if you're going to save a link, you could save that /media link. So, Kara asked, do you have a course for those specifically trying to get through their PhD proposals? We do not. We have one in our back pocket, but we have not released it yet. But we do have, Kara, we do have a program that is our co-writing program. And we do have PhD students in there. It's a monthly membership called Momentum. It's cathymazak.com/momentum. That has like co-writing times and a Monday group call. And so what people use that program for is like people all across their different, stages of their career will use that program for, to move whatever project they're working on forward. So we have people working on their dissertations in there, their proposals. We have people working on articles, grants. During the high point of the semester, sometimes people come to the co-writing sessions and grade because they're like, it helps me to keep focused if I'm just grading here while you all are here. And so that program is something, that's what we would point PhD students to. So, Ana Maria, I hope I'm pronouncing your name. Okay. She asked, what if you constantly feel like you're in a slogging state? Great question. Let me know in the chat if somebody else feels that way. If anybody else feels that way, that means you're tired, and that means you need to rest. So if you can't rest, or you think you can't rest because it's like, I don't know, whatever week 12 of the semester is, and you're going to have to deal with final exams and grading and whatever before you can rest, then what you can do is it's like preventative action so that you can start to rest before you can get to a real rest. And that is that you just start to dial back on everything that you can possibly dial back. And so I'll tell you a quick story about, I live in Puerto Rico, and in 2017, in September, Hurricane Maria passed through and destroyed the infrastructure of the island. And we were basically trapped in our property for a week. And even when we got out, and then the university eventually, after about a month, got back in session, our library was closed for a year. Power grid was unstable. Groceries were unstable. We got students with no power or water at home trying to come and study. It was a whole mess. And by the time I got to the end of that academic year, I was like, I might break down. I could see it coming. And there were like 3 or 4 weeks left in the semester. And I'm like, okay, this is going to become minimum viable semester. This is like, I'm going to come home from work. First of all, I'm going to cut stuff. Everything I can possibly cut from my obligations will get cut. I need to force myself to sit on this couch and watch Netflix or read a book, because I must rest. So if you are always feeling like you're slogging, then you probably are just real tired. And so you need to get to the point where you can take like a break. If you can't take a break yet, because it's the middle of the semester, then you need to try to dial back on everything you can until you can take a 100% whole brain is off break from academia, preferably for like a week, but for whatever amount of time you can. Pallavi says, I learned a lot of important things today. So 2 questions. Thank you. How to focus more at the start of a writing session, and also how to stop focusing too much about a particular opening sentence. These are great questions. Okay. So how to focus more at the beginning of a writing session is actually, the key to this is in the previous writing session. So what you want to do is you want to, every time that you write, when you get to like, it's my hour is going to be up, or however you're timing yourself, there's lots of different ways we can talk about. But when you're getting to the end of a writing session, you want to make sure you take 3 minutes to write yourself what I call breadcrumbs. So they're like a few short sentences or phrases that are going to help you pick up where you left off. So like your next little, clues as to what you were thinking next, right? So that's something that can really help you start the next session with focus. The other thing that I do, if I know, like, because my soar state is first thing in the morning. So a lot of times, like, I'm working on a book, and I write about 2 times a week first thing in the morning, and 1 time a week I have a co-writing session with other book writers that I do. So I write like 3 times a week for an hour each time. So like for those Wednesday and Friday mornings, I know that the first thing I want to do at my computer is write. So I wonder if I have the tab. I do. So here's my writing tab, and I'll have this tab open only. And so here's my manuscript. Here's my table of contents. Here's the chapter that I'm working on right now. And then I also have, this is for book writers. So don't, if you're not a book writer, it might not be relevant, and then I have my work plan, which is where I'm like, okay, this is the number of words I'm at, my goal, where I want it to be, and how close I am, how many writing sessions I think it's going to take for me to finish the chapter. So when I have when I want to make sure I get started fast, then the day before I open this window for the whole size of my screen. So it's the only thing I can see when I start up my computer, when I log in, and I don't go to email. I don't do anything else. I sit down and I start, and that's it. So that's some advice about how to get focused at the beginning of a writing session. And then how to stop focusing too much about a particular opening sentence. You are going to revise the opening sentence, and the opening sentence is super important. So it makes sense that it has, that you're worried about it, but you don't need it to be perfect. So just write something and keep going and just go back to it. So I would say, like, revision is part of the process. What you just saw me flash on the screen about my book is my first rough draft. And so, I know that I'm going to be months in revision of the book. So, I'm not worried about sentences. I'm not worried about the first sentence. I'm going to write something, or just write blah, 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 and keep going, and because you don't want to like kind of stop that momentum. Yes, Focusmate is an option as well for that kind of getting that co-writing done. Gemma says, what are your tips for people that have chronic fatigue and or depression or other health conditions that can affect their energy levels and motivation? This is a great question. So just the same as, or just as I was, saying at the beginning when I was talking about soaring sessions, you want to know yourself and your energy very, very intimately. So that's why reflection is so, so important in all of this process. So one of the coaches who works on, this is the coach who is kind of the lead coach in our Momentum co-writing program, Rocio, she has a chronic health condition, and she knows that, she knows that some days she will not be able to do the amount that she does on other days, depending on how her unpredictable chronic condition is going. That's why it's so important to have a writing system that is flexible, a writing system that you can turn up the volume and turn down the volume. That if you stop writing, that you know how to get back to it. So again, I keep ragging on the, the people who tell you to write every day. The problem with that advice about like, oh, the way to write more is write every day, is that it relies on on the fact that you don't want to break the chain, right? That writing every day, like you don't want to like break the chain of your writing. And that's not motivating to me. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, like, if you get off track, it's really hard to get back on because you keep starting at day one again. It's like day one, day one. And with soaring sessions, you can, now how to get back on track if you get off. Start with 1 hour during a soaring session, 1 day a week. That's how you get back in. So you can drop your writing completely and know how to get back on. And that's another thing that we teach inside of the Navigate course. We teach sprinting, which is a way to like, you know, really move the needle on a project. And actually in the Momentum program, we do sprints as well together collectively. But that is like you need to have a writing system that forgives you if you get off track. That's absolutely essential and really essential to people who deal with chronic health issues. And then in terms of motivation, also, it's like really to me, the key to motivation is rest. Like if you are unmotivated, a lot of times that's signaling that you're tired, that you need to care for yourself. So that's the way to get through lack of motivation, is instead of doing more things like, or beating yourself up in your mind about that, it's really resting. Lindsay asks, what are your tips for overcoming perfectionism? I find it hard to get words on the paper because I need them to be perfect. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's not like a totally bad idea. Like, how do I say this? So perfectionism, like we have high standards for ourselves. And I think as women, we have extra high standards because we have had to compete at a higher level. If we're competing head to head with men, we are held to a higher standard. So the fact that you feel perfectionism is understandable in the way that we're socialized, like inside of the world, but also inside of academia. So the key to, I mean, for me, like perfectionism is you getting too much in your own head about like how things have to be, or you having a bar too high. I think a really key thing to learn as an academic is when to set the bar high and when to lower the bar. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to keep the bar high all the time for everything. And that is the wrong strategy. That is the burnout strategy. The strategy has to be like, on some things, the bar is going to be high. And on other things, the bar is going to be low. Like on how I'm going to grade this particular quiz, yeah, you get a plus or you get a minus and we're going on. Like that's not huge in the scheme of life or in your career. But the things that, should get that higher bar. Drafts don't get a high bar because drafts are drafts. Later when you're revising, the bar can be higher. So knowing a couple of things. One is that for most people listening to this, you probably could do what you think is a C+ job and it'll be other people's A+ jobs. So you have to kind of get that confidence in yourself to go like, even if I'm doing this half-assed, it's still going to be real good. And so thinking through that about perfectionism, I think is helpful. The book I recommend for everything maybe is Playing Big by Tara Moore. I have it right here. I'll hold it up. It's Playing Big by Tara Moore. It comes out backwards on the screen when you see it, but Tara Moore is M-O-H-R. And the subtitle is Practical Wisdom for Women Who Want to Speak Up, Create, and Lead. And one of the things she talks about in that book is like your inner good student and how that gets in your way of actually being a real leader and being super successful, though that kind of inner identity as the good student. So that might be something helpful for you. Carla, we have a minute left. Yes, we have no minutes left. So we still have questions. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want me to keep answering questions, or should I wrap?
Do we still have any more questions? I can't see any.
Thank everybody for thinking.
Yeah. I think if we can all unmute and give Cathy a clap, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and listening. And thank you for the invitation.
I think we should have you on another time. This has been useful. Yeah.
No, sorry, I'm in a meeting.
Yeah, and really, like, even if you wanted to do something that was kind of even more time
it's
for
just
Q&A,
wrapping, so
we could
10
just do a
minutes.
Q&A. That would be fun too.
I'll ring you back.
Yeah, probably look at more time. Yeah, for next one. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.